What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Silos Film Club. We break down the biggest movie news and we dive deep into the world of cinema. And today, guys, I just finished watching one of my most anticipated films of 2026. That is Project Hail Mary, guys. And I will let you guys know right now, this movie, it is pretty awesome, guys. This movie overall, I think did what it was supposed to do. You get some heartwarming stuff. You get some emotional intensity, some crying moments. It is actually pretty funny throughout the entire film too, as well, and it looks beautifully done with great chemistry. Character Grace and Rocky, the being that he has to work with to save the Earth. Pretty much the premise is pretty easy, guys. Science teacher Rylan Grace wakes up in his spaceship with no recollection of who he is or how he got there, and his memory slowly turns. He soon discovers that he must solve the riddle behind a mysterious substance called astrophage that's causing the sun to die out. As the details of the mission unravels, he calls on his scientific training and ingenuity, but he may not have to do this alone, guys. This movie, guys, it is awesome. This is going to be somewhat of spoilers, somewhat non spoilers. When I'm talking about some big major points, guys, I'm going to let you guys know that the spoilers, you guys can skip ahead. But before we get started with our review, guys, don't forget the like and subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so you guys do not miss a beat on any of the movie news. All right, guys, Project Hail Mary, it delivers on every aspect you can think of in a film. Like I said earlier, it has a little bit of everything, guys. Pretty much the movie, how it's set up. We got Grace. He wakes up in the ship on a mission to save, Earth because astrophage is eating the sun up, and they have to go to a different solar system. The solar system is called Tau Ceti. Tau Ceti. I might be saying this incorrectly, and they pretty much send him out there with two other astronauts. And right when he wakes up, he notices that the other two astronauts are dead. He's trying to recollect his memory and why he's there, and whatnot. He doesn't really know he's a teacher. Then he starts to do these problems because he sees all these other things on these whiteboards and whatnot, and everything starts to click back to him slowly. Though that is a key point. The movie goes back and forth from him being on Earth, being approached by the government, by one of the characters, which her name is Strap, played by Sandra Hüller, which she is great in this movie. She is the one in charge of putting this mission together. And he approaches Grace, which he's just a middle school teacher, loves science. He's great with his students, doesn't have a wife, doesn't have dogs, nothing. And they pretty much ask him if he can go save the world. And there's some spoilers a little bit later, which I will talk about a little bit in the spoiler section, when he has to go out, out on the ship and pretty much do a Hail Mary, mission, which means he's not going to make it back. He is not going to make it back in order to save the Earth, but I'll get a little bit to the spoilers a little bit later. Then we kick back, guys. He is on on his ship, and he's trying to figure out on why he is there and what he has to do to save the Earth. He knows that he starts to recollect his memory about this astrophage, these little red microorganisms organisms that he has to pretty much figure out, because they are pretty much going to this solar system. That when they get there, they're there, and the solar system still alive. That solar system, that's the only solar system that the sun is not eating up, getting eaten up by the astrophage, and pretty much he's on his mission to go over there. How he figures this out, guys, he starts to recollect his memory, and they shoot back to the scene back on Earth. Pretty much they jumping back and forth on why he on why he is there. And he has this really good chemistry with Officer Carl, which is played by Lionel Boyce. He is the guy from The Bear. He has a really good chemistry. He is the bodyguard. One of the bodyguards that's working for the government is kind of watching over Grace. They have pretty good chemistry. Ryan Gosling, super funny. He has great chemistry with anyone he comes on screen with. Emma Stone, Russell Crowe and the other guys. He also has great chemistry with this rock being that we're going to start getting into. Great chemistry with them too. Rocky, he is this, this being that's also on the same mission to save his, planet too as well, because astrophage is eating his planet too as well. And they both kind of team up together, and they have great emotional moments. Them knowing about each other's culture, trying to figure out his voice, trying to communicate with each other. There's some funny scenes where he's trying to give him a thumbs up, and the rock being Rocky, he gives him a thumbs down, and he goes, "No, you're doing the wrong way." It's because his hand cannot physically do this. His hand is pretty much two little hands like this. And this, Rocky Beam, he is super smart. They have really good moments where he's explaining where he's from. He tells him that he has a mate. That's why he wants to go back home too as well. And they've been with each other for so long. And Grace asks him, "Damn, that's such a long," or tells him, "That's such a long time you guys been together." And he goes, "Not long enough." Pretty much he wants to go back and just be with his mate for a much longer time period, which I thought it was beautifully well done. Their space scenes are awesome, guys. When they actually show up to the solar system, the solar system, I can never say the name. The Tau Ceti. They start to figure out that the reason why these beings are getting there to that, solar system, they hitting that planet, that green planet that we see in the trailers, which looks beautifully, and they actually end up naming it Adrian, which is he gives him the option to name it after Rocky's mate. And the reason why they name it after Rocky's mate because they couldn't come up with the name, and he cannot figure out what Rocky's mate name is, because every time he would say the name, it was just like a different language. And he goes, "You know what? Your wife's name is Adrian." That's just our version of his wife's name. And I thought it was beautifully done because, of course, Rocky and Adrian from the Rocky franchise. Pretty awesome, guys. I thought it was beautifully done. When they actually end up getting to this, planet, they start to figure out that astrophages are not multiplying. They're actually dying when they get there. So this planet is actually a predator, which is eating the astrophage. So they got to get the stuff that's in this planet, send it back to the respective, Earth and Rocky's respective home, and they're gonna try to stabilize the astrophage, which they figure out that they can pretty much use stuff that's in that planet, take it back to their homes, and then pretty much eat the astrophage from their solar systems back to the astrophage, which is pretty clever, guys. They do it pretty well. Explaining everything, and whatnot. And the scenes where they show up to this planet are a chef's kiss. Greg Fraser, the cinematographer, he's the one that did the Batman, the Dune movies. He also did Blade Runner. Super busy guy. He did this cinematography for this film. He also did the cinematography. He's gonna do the cinematography for the Beatles movie. Super busy guy. He is a Hans Zimmer of cinematography, guys. He is the one and only. Great. They use this thing called the volume, which is pretty much a screen behind actors that are on a actual set, and that's how they make it look very realistic. A lot of volume, though, I've seen it in different movies, are not done well at all. But this movie is beautifully done. When they get to that, the planet Adrian, the green planet, looks cool, guys. The astrophage, when he goes outside and he's in there, just kind of taking it all in that red astrophage that you can just see in the when he's out in space, just looks such greatly done. It looks so beautiful. Makes me want to go to outer space. And I watched it on IMAX, and that's the way you had to watch this film. It's just such a beautiful movie to watch, guys. Such a beautiful movie to watch. But of course, when they're trying to leave the planet, like every other space movie, it gets very complicated. The atmosphere, it starts getting hit with rocks. So it's hitting their ships. I'm gonna get a little bit of the spoilers right now, guys. There's gonna be some major spoilers coming up. But pretty much when they're trying to leave, he starts to get banged up in there, which is Grace getting banged up in there. He has to hit these switches, so they have to leave the planet. Rocky too as well. Is kind of whining and crying, almost like a dog. It seems is very very sad because Grace is getting banged up, and he is so sad for him. I swear, he to me just kind of seemed like a dog when a dog is like very panicking, is whining, and it hit home for me, guys. It really did, and it made me very sad. He gets knocked out, Grace, before he hits these switches. He pretty much, Rocky leaves his little shell, which he has to be inside, or else he gets eaten up by the atmosphere. When he gets out of there, guys, and you start seeing like he starts to, you can just tell it's almost like he's getting burnt. So you start to see all these stuff coming out of Rocky, and he does it. He hits the switches to save Grace. Man, I mean, to save themselves and Grace, guys. That is such a human moment for something that is a human act of kindness for something that's not human to save something else, which is pretty much, it's pretty much something that should be talked about in the world today, especially everything that's going on. I thought it was beautifully well done. Everyone's all one helping each other out, and I thought that was beautifully well done. They also have this moment when they're back in Earth where Grace, he is talking to Strat, telling him that he's not brave enough to do this kind of mission. And he goes, "It's not about being brave; it's about finding something to be brave for, to be brave for." And that becomes like a main theme of the story, especially later on in the film. Grace, pretty much lives because Rocky sacrificed himself for him. And we all think that Rocky's dead. Non spoil, it's spoiler right here. He is not dead, guys. He is in induced coma. They have actually had a talk earlier where Grace is trying to sleep, and Rocky is just pretty much in his face watching him the whole time. He goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, my planet, we watch each other sleep because we always have each other's back while someone's asleep." It's kind of like a protection mechanism, which I thought was pretty cute. He watches him when he's in a coma the entire time. He's right next to his side, and when he wakes up, Grace, Rocky wakes up before him and wakes up Grace, and such a great moment. They hug it out, not technically hug it out, but he gets over the glass, and they have this little hug in there, and I thought it was pretty well done, guys. Pretty much, there's a big twist in the film, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We do have Rocky and and Grace. They get all these things in probes, and pretty much they're gonna contain these little, I forgot these organisms that they have to take. These organisms that they take are pretty much they're gonna multiply them in their respective worlds, and they're gonna eat astrophage, so they're not eating their own son. And so what they're gonna do, guys, they're gonna split. But Grace tells him that for me there's no split. I don't have enough fuel to come back. And that's when he tells him, "What do you mean? You never told me this." Rocky tells him, "You never told me that you weren't gonna make it back. He's like, you were gonna die." And Rocky, such a good person, even though he has to go back to his mate, wants to see him longer. He goes, "How much fuel do you need?" And Grace is like, "Oh, I need this much amount." He goes, "If I gave you this much fuel, it only adds 6 years to my journey back home. I'm still gonna go back home. It's only adding 6 years." And Grace is like, "No, I'm not gonna do that." And they eventually, agree on doing that. They both go back to their perspective. They both, say bye to each other, which is a very heartful moment. And when they say bye to each other, guys, we've Grace figures out that he, has to, save Rocky because there is a leakage of those microorganisms that they have. There is a leakage, and when they have that leakage, he knows that Rocky's not going to be able to figure that out, and it's going to kill Rocky slowly on his ship. But before we get back to what's going to happen next, there is a big, twist with this. And Strat tells them, "We're going to send you out there." And they give him 3 hours to decide. When he comes back, and after the 3 hours, and he says that he's not going to do it, she tells him, "Well, there's no choice. This is the only way. I didn't want it to come to this." And the security guards get a lot closer to him, and they pretty much, what they do to him is they they put this they hit him with this sleeping needle. And it gets pretty sad because they tell him, "You don't have a wife, you don't have a girlfriend, you don't have a kid, you're gonna be forced to do this." And he goes, "Well, when I'm out there, how am I gonna figure this out?" And he goes, "You're gonna figure it out. You'll just figure it out." And that becomes a main theme in the movie too, guys. That part was pretty sad because he didn't want to be up there. First you think, this guy, not very heroic, but this is the only heroic thing he's going to do. And he gets forced to be put up there. He's scared. I don't think I would do it, to be honest, guys. At the end of the day, I know maybe I'm not in a position where, I don't have a girlfriend. I'm not in a position where I don't have a girlfriend. I do have a girlfriend. I don't, I have I don't have kids, but my mom and dad, my nieces and nephews, and I don't want to leave them behind, which is can be very selfish because I can save them. But at the end of the day, I don't think I would go out there and do it. They forced him to do it, and I do think that was a really good twist in the film. I actually thought that the whole time that he, they convince him to do it and he eventually does it. No, he never wanted to be up there. And I thought that was a really good twist. Really, really good twist. I'm not sure if it's in the book or not, but if it's not, or if it is, do not spoil it for yourselves, guys. Do not read the book. Do not read the book if you've not seen. If you're just gonna go in there see the movie, or do not have anyone spoil anything from the book if you haven't seen the movie yet. But guys, when he's up there, let's go back to where he's in that ship and he has to go back and he pretty much decides, I'm gonna go save Rocky no matter what. Even if I go back there and I die myself and I'm not gonna get enough fuel to make it back home, I'm gonna go save Rocky. That's when it hits me. He actually found something to be brave for, and that was that heroic moment for Grace. I know he's up there doing everything that he has to do to save his Earth, which he is doing the acts of being a hero, but this is the actual act of him, that pivotal point of that character becoming a hero, and I thought it was very well done. So yeah, guys, he goes back, he saves Rocky. Guys, and then we get a shot of him waking up in a bed. I honestly thought he was waking up on Earth and everything was fine. The Earth is saved. And, Grace is just living his life. I thought he was going to have like a girlfriend, maybe a kid who was going to be in the future. This was all my thoughts going on in like within 5 seconds. But no, guys, we figured out that he is actually staying on Rocky's planet. And it was pretty cool, guys, because this, the planet they're in, they have that little glass dome that which they can make, to protect themselves from, the atmosphere. We have Grace kind of, waking up, still has that talking robot. I forgot the name of the robot that he has. They're making him coffee, and he's kind of staying there temporarily until Rocky and the other beings that are living there are fixing his ship so he can go back to Earth. Then you see him having a little moment with Rocky. They're walking down their beach. Rocky's having a good conversation with Grace, and Grace is having a great conversation with Rocky, and Rocky tells him, hey, your ship is almost ready so you can go back to Earth. And Grace is like, man, you know what if I stay here longer? And Rocky goes, what if you stay here a lot longer? And guys, when he said that, I'm like, dude, they really bonded in there. He does not want to leave Grace at all. And guess what the ending scene of this movie, of this part is? He actually ends up, teaching again. And who is he teaching? All the, the Rockies. I'm just going to call them Rockies because I forgot their species name. And he's just teaching all of them. He's just a guy that likes to teach, guys. And he's doing it in a different planet. It doesn't matter where you're at, who you are, what you look like. And this is also, I think, another thing that this movie touches on is everyone's all, you don't have to be looking exactly like the other person to give a hand, to be nice to help each other out. That's exactly what this theme of the movie is. And he just wants to teach guys no matter what planet he is in. And then he actually ends up sending all those probes filled with those microorganisms back to Earth. And then once they land on Earth, it is in the future. And you see Strat a lot older with the message from Grace. And then the message from Grace pretty much saying that, he met an, alien friend, and they're working together. Pretty much what we see in the trailer, all the recordings, and they pretty much he gives them all the notes with that organism from the Predator planet, which they named Adrian, and doesn't give them all the details, but pretty much gives them everything that they need to know. And he goes, I would explain everything, but pretty much hit her with the same line that he hit him. You guys will figure it out. And I thought that was pretty well done, guys. I really like when movies set things up with punchlines later throughout the film, and I thought it was beautifully well done. I really loved how the movie ended. I will say some of the negatives of the film, though. I do think that some of the soundtracks were not well done. Not well done, but they were poorly choice soundtracks. They didn't really fit the timing of the scenes of the soundtracks when they were put in the film. There was a lot of that overused to me. Pretty much very similar to somewhat of a James Gunn movie, like in the Peacemaker show. They do that a lot, where a lot of the soundtrack kind of overstays its welcome, and I think that was done a little too much in the film. When they use the score I forgot who did the score to this film. It's very like an or like how do I explain it? Very sounds like, I don't want to say church music, but it's very like a choir kind of type of soundtrack, which to me was done very well. I thought when they did when a lot of the score came on was done well, but a lot of the soundtrack, like I said, overstayed its welcome a little too much, which I did not like that much. I do think that the first half of the movie reminded me a little bit of like the Martian. He's trying to figure out why he's there. He's trying to put all these notes together. The scientific parts of it maybe could lose some people. I do think that this movie is made for somewhat for a family. You can definitely take your kid and they'll be entertained with the Rocky scenes because it's pretty funny. It's like a little ET kind of situation there with Grace and Rocky. But I do think that the first half might be a little sophisticated for kids. There's a lot going on with scientific terms of what they need to do in order to execute this mission. I do think that half might be a little bit on the softer side, but I do think that this film is great, guys. You guys have to watch this in IMAX. I do think this is a movie that is worth seeing on IMAX 100%. The ratio on it is crazy. It looks beautifully. This is something you watch in a movie theater for 100%. Everyone in my movie theater was laughing, guys, and the jokes. The fist bumping joke was hilarious to me when he keeps showing Rocky how to fist bump. He's telling him, "Hey, let's fist bump," and he goes, "You want to fist my bump?" He goes, "No, you're saying it incorrectly." They had the ongoing joke throughout the movie, and it's beautifully well done. It was not overused to me. It was well done. Every single time it had me laughing. Guys, that was my review for Project Hail Mary. This is a movie they should definitely watch on IMAX or just go watch it in theaters. Get those popcorn buckets, guys, because this movie is awesome. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for clicking on my YouTube channel. Take care.